Ho vendetta. The county planner's revenge. The clang of metal on metal was my 6 a.m. alarm. A jarring, ugly sound that mixed with the sweet, acrid burn of diesel exhaust, choking out the clean smell of the dew and my fresh coffee. It was happening, just as I'd suspected. But somehow worse, because this chain-link monstrosity was cutting 39 feet deep into the oldest part of my acreage, right through the heritage mesquite trees my grandfather planted, blocking the only winter path for my herd. And now I had 16 head of prime black Angus trapped behind 8 feet of cold, ugly steel, and there she was. Veronica Sterling, president of the Pinnacle Hill Estates HOA, sitting in her pristine white utility cart, not a golf cart. A utility cart because golf carts are too plebeian, sipping some iced. Fancy coffee, sunglasses the size of small dinner plates, not just watching but actually waving at me. A slow, condescending wave like she was doing me a favor. My name is Jake Thorne. For 22 years, I've been the chief regional planner for this entire county, third-generation cattleman, and the only person in this valley who has signed off on every single legal land survey and subdivision map, including hers. She thought she was fighting a grumpy old cowboy who didn't understand progress. But what she didn't know was that I don't just draw the lines. I know every loophole, every code section, every pressure point in the municipal system. She had stolen from the man who drew the map. And I was about to teach her a lesson in geography she'd never forget. My ranch, the Ironwood, has been in the family since 1910. My dad, bless his heart, left it to me with one simple, scribbled note tucked into his transit case. Don't let them take an inch. That inch became my sacred oath, especially after losing my wife, Clara, to a long fight with cancer 5 years back. The ranch is my anchor. The only thing that still smells like the life we built together. The leather in my old Chevy truck still squeaks the same way it did when she was riding shotgun, reading her tattered field guides. It's not just land. It's continuity, you understand? 18 months ago, Veronica rolled in from the city, bought the biggest new build in Pinnacle Hill, a $900,000 spec home. The median price in our county is $210K. Just to give you context, with her designer yoga wear and a personality that could curdle milk. Within 6 months, she was HOA president, because the previous guy was impeached after she reported his blue recycle bin visible from the street for a full 12 minutes past the morning collection time. Then I became her project. First, it was my cattle being too loud, disrupting her sunrise meditation. Dismissed naturally. Then, a formal demand to relocate my industrial livestock operations 500 feet from her property line. I filed that one directly into my circular waste bin. Then she started showing up at county commission meetings, talking about outdated agrarian practices and dust and respiratory health. Lady, this is Texas if you can't handle a little dirt. You probably should have stayed in the city. 3 weeks before the fence went up, a routine permit application landed on my desk. HOA fence installation, Phase 3. I barely glanced, stamped it, and Brenda, my assistant, a sweet, sharp woman who's been with me forever, said, "Isn't that your new neighbor, Jake?" I shrugged. System's the same for everyone, Brenda. Famous last words. That morning, I stomped down to the fence line in my work boots. The foreman, a young guy, looked nervous, holding up a survey map stamped by Granite Creek Surveyors. Never heard of them. The line on the map showed my land as theirs. "Stop work," I told him, pointing to my official county plat map. This contradicts certified records, and that's when Veronica appeared. Her expensive, cloying perfume arrived maybe 3 seconds before she did. She had that forced, placid smile, the kind a cult leader gives you just before asking for your life savings. "Oh, Mr. Thorne," she purred, "surely you understand property lines. Our survey is brand new, certified. Perhaps your county records are just a bit behind the times." She looked me up and down, implying the same about me. The crew kept working. Contract signed, money paid. By 4 p.m., the fence was finished. The next day, I cut her shiny new lock with my heavy-duty bolt cutters. My property, my cattle, my right. By noon the day after, she had the gate welded shut. Welded. Steel bead running along the latch, still warm when I touched it. And the cherry on top? She put up signs facing her subdivision. No trespassing. The Ironwood Ranch property. She was trying to frame me as the territorial maniac, the one obsessed with the boundary. If I hadn't been so furious, I'd have been impressed by the sheer arrogance of it. I hired Lucinda Tate, a solo practitioner who fights like a cornered wolverine. She looked over my documents, the fraudulent survey, the photos of the fence, the pictures of her markers set not into the earth, but in concrete buckets buried just beneath the surface. "This is blatant," Lucinda admitted, "but fraud takes time and money to prove. They're banking on bankrupting you first. I had $11,000 in savings. Her estimated minimum cost, $25,000. I felt the weight of Big Jim's legacy pressing down on me, but the worst was when she filed a second ethics complaint, trying to get my chief planner license revoked, claiming I'd been systematically approving faulty surveys for decades to benefit agrarian friends. My reputation was bleeding out in the local paper. I called my daughter, Maya, an environmental attorney in Denver. She flew down, and we sat at my kitchen table buried under documents. The smell of her takeout Thai food made the old house feel alive for the first time in years. "Dad," she said, tapping the financial records Brenda had managed to subpoena, "this is bigger than your fence. She's running a scam." Brenda's discovery, pulled from public records, was the first explosion. Veronica didn't just own one house. She owned 13 properties in Pinnacle Hill, all through an LLC called Sterling Holdings. She was an HOA president running a real estate empire. The pattern was sickening. 6 months after taking power, she pushed through a special emergency drainage assessment of $4,500 per home. Maya checked the bylaws. Texas law required a 67% homeowner vote for assessments over $2,500. Veronica's passed with 18 votes out of 80. It was illegally passed, void from the start. But 3 families unable to pay the illegal fee, including Frank Higgins, a 70-year-old decorated Vietnam veteran, were foreclosed on by the HOA in 90 days. Sterling Holdings was the sole bidder at every auction, buying homes for pennies on the dollar, flipping them for a profit of over $400,000. She wasn't fighting for property values. She was an opportunist weaponizing the HOA to steal homes. My 240 acres? That was just phase 2. This wasn't a boundary dispute. It was felony theft. Lucinda called the state attorney general's organized crime division that morning. Maya found our final weapon: 4 severe environmental violations, drainage discharging too close to the protected creek, the pool encroaching on the wetland buffer. I called my old friend Donovan Reed, the environmental compliance officer. He inspected, found all 4, and issued a notice of violation, 30 days to cure, or face fines of $30,000 per day. He sent a courtesy copy to the EPA, federal record. Those violations affected all 80 homes. Panic was inevitable. Veronica sensed the walls closing in. She called me asking for a meeting at the Main Street Diner, public witnesses. She slid into the booth, all polished composure and expensive perfume, her checkbook ready. "Garrett," she said, her voice dripping with fake sincerity, "we are both pragmatic. This has gotten out of hand. I'm prepared to offer you $550,000 for your ranch, 25% above market, cash. You walk away clean. The fence? Water under the bridge." I sipped my coffee. "And what about the families you foreclosed on, Veronica?" "Frank Higgins?" Her mask cracked for the first time. The venom flashed in her eyes. "They couldn't afford to live here, Mr. Thorne. That is not my problem." I dropped 2 tens on the table. "We're done," I said, standing up. Her voice rose, shrill and sharp. "You will regret this. I have resources and connections you can't imagine." I just walked out, knowing I had just refused her attempt to buy stolen land with embezzled money. 2 weeks later, the final scene was set, the emergency HOA meeting. Veronica called it to push through a $50,000 legal defense fund and new bylaws making it impossible to remove the board. The community center was packed, the air thick with nervous sweat. Veronica stood at the podium trying to project authority, all platinum hair and designer athleisure. "Point of order!" a voice cut through the room. It was Frank Higgins, the veteran, standing ramrod straight in the back. "I want financial records before we vote." Veronica tried to dismiss him. "You are not a member anymore, Frank. I am an observer with public documents relevant to HOA finances." I called out, rising from the back row. Veronica's face went white. Her lawyer jumped up, yelling, "This is improper!" I didn't yell back. I just projected my voice, calm as a lake in the morning. "Mrs. Sterling, how much did Sterling Holdings LLC receive from HOA funds over the last 18 months? "That is confidential," she spat. $127,000, I stated, pulling a stack of documents from my bag and handing them to the person next to me. The papers passed through the crowd like a contagion. "Paid to a shell company you own for vague consulting services." The room erupted. Frank Higgins's voice, usually quiet, was shaking with emotion. "She stole my home!" "That assessment was a fraud." Veronica started banging the gavel wildly. Lucinda walked in from the side entrance. "Mrs. Sterling," Lucinda said, her voice ringing clear, "I am serving you notice. The State Attorney General has opened a criminal investigation into embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy." Silence. Just the hum of the air conditioning. Veronica stared at the papers, her lawyer whispering frantically. "Your survey was fake," I finished, quiet now, letting the truth do the work. "Created by your ex-husband's dissolved company. The markers were planted in concrete buckets instead of driven into the ground." A woman in the middle row stood up. "I motion to remove Veronica Sterling as president and board member immediately." The vote was quick. 56 hands shot up, 2 abstained, 0 opposed. Veronica stood frozen, the gavel in her hand. Then she threw it down and screamed, "You people don't understand! Property values are up because of me. That rancher is destroying everything we built." She grabbed her purse and stalked out, homeowners parting like she was radioactive. 2 weeks later, the AG filed charges: 3 counts of embezzlement, 5 counts of fraud, conspiracy, and forgery. Her 13 properties went into receivership. County voided the 3 foreclosures. I helped Frank Higgins move his furniture back into the house he'd lost and fought for. He raised his American flag on the porch, tears on his face. "You fought for it, son," he whispered. "That matters." The new HOA board formally apologized, agreed to pay damages, and removed the fence in 1 day, the same crew that built it, full circle. Both ethics complaints against me were dismissed. I even got a public apology and a standing ovation at the county commission meeting. I later testified at the state capitol, using Frank's case as the example for new HOA transparency legislation that passed. It won't save everyone, but it'll save some. The ranch recovered. The grass grew back where the fence had cut through, barely visible by spring. The old mesquite trees stood tall. My wife Clara used to say, "Land doesn't lie, people do. The land just waits for the truth." A few months later, I was on my porch, enjoying a quiet evening, when the phone rang. It was Brenda. "Jake," she chirped, "we've got a situation. City councilman built a new guest house. Says zoning doesn't apply to him. Can you review?" I smiled. "Send it over, Brenda." Some people never learn, but here's the thing. Delilah's Veronica's story, it makes you wonder, how often does this happen? How many people are fighting a fence when they should be fighting a criminal enterprise? If you've got an HOA horror story or a neighbor who thought their money put them above the law, I want to hear it. Drop your story in the comments below. Tell me who drew the map in your town and who tried to erase it. If you believe in fighting for what's right, smash that like button and subscribe. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a councilman's very illegal permits to review.